See, part 2, here as promised. I would have liked to include this together with the last video, but there's a few things that I wanted to touch on more in relation to Achilles' abilities and his role in the show. So let's talk about what he can do. This first skill is more of a natural trait. Because he had inhuman speed during the Trojan War, he's widely considered the fastest servant out of all the ones in Fate Apocrypha, both with and without his chariot. He also has a skill called Affections of the Goddess, which stems from the love of his mother. It essentially makes him slightly more powerful. Then his first noble phantasm is his chariot, called Troy's Tragedy, Tempestuous Immortal Chariot. It's a mount that can fly and is pulled by 3 horses, 2 of which I mentioned as being divine since they were gifts from Poseidon. In the legend, they're supposed to be immortal, but when summoned as noble phantasms, they're only as strong as another servant, which is still pretty tough regardless. The longer that he rides his chariot, the faster it goes, and the amount of damage he can do while in the chariot is proportional to that increase in speed. If his master wasn't Chariol though, the amount of mana required to even let the chariot reach max speed would be equivalent to that of summoning a whole nother servant. Next up would be his spear, called the Meteor spear, spear tip of the star-traversing skies. This spear was also a gift, but not from a god, it was from Chiron himself. Chiron gave this to Akhilleus, who then gave it to Achilles. At its core, it's just a melee weapon, simply for thrusting and piercing. It also has the magical ability called Duel Field, which as we saw in the later episodes, creates a fair battleground for a proper one-on-one fight. It's an interesting ability that was created so that when Hector fought Achilles, it would be fair, since it would remove Achilles' invulnerability. There's no interference of time, outsiders, or even gods. It's sort of similar to a reality marble, because it creates a separate dimension that only disappears when a victor is determined. In order for the field to be created though, the opposing servant has to agree to the terms of the duel. Also, the field cannot be used on someone that is weaker than him or female, because those are the types of people that Achilles vowed to never fight seriously in a one-on-one. The spear also has the unique attribute to make any damage caused by it permanent, similar to that of the Lancer's spear from Fate Zero. As long as the spear exists, the wound caused by it cannot be healed. Although, in order to even activate any of these abilities, Achilles has to give up access to his chariot, which may be why we didn't see him use it often in the show. His next noble phantasm is called Heroism's Eternal Man, Amaranth of the Brave, which is his gift of immortality. This is actually stupidly overpowered. This skill allows him to be immune to all attacks from anything and everything as long as they're not divine. Basically, if you aren't related to the gods in any way, or don't have possession of a weapon created by a god, then you literally can't hurt Achilles. Both Saber's noble phantasms, absolutely useless on this guy. It doesn't matter how much power you have, you need some sort of divinity to be able to even challenge Achilles. This is interesting though, because it's said that it would be absolutely impossible for the Black Faction to win the war if Chiron wasn't on their team, since he's the only one that possesses any sort of divinity trait. That's probably why we really got to see him fight against anyone other than Chiron. From what I can remember, the only time he fought someone else was in episode 4 when he fought Berserker and Saber. But even then, he wasn't even trying because he knew that they couldn't do anything. There are 2 other weaknesses to this though. This invincibility doesn't apply to acts that display friendship. So, for example, when Vlad became a vampire and he attacked Ryder, his attack was not meant to kill, but instead to turn him into a fellow vampire. Therefore, Ryder's invincibility wouldn't save him from it. And then of course there's his heal, which once struck, negates the blessing and makes Achilles susceptible to regular attacks. Alright, don't worry, we're getting close to the noble phantasm that I'm sure you're all here for. But he still has one more before that, and it's called Runner Comet, Comet form. It's the embodiment of his speed. Once Achilles dismounts from his chariot, Runner Comet takes effect, and he becomes the fastest person on the battlefield. It's considered to just be instantaneous movement. He might as well just be teleporting. But just like all noble phantasms, it isn't perfect. It requires him to have his heel exposed, but honestly, that doesn't even really matter because no other servant can even keep up with that speed. And finally, here we are, the Akhilleus Kosmos, the miniature world enclosed by the azure sky. The shield of Achilles made by the god of blacksmiths himself, Hephaestus. This is a unique bounded field type noble phantasm that goes beyond simply making a piece of land through magic. This shield summons an entire world, the world that Achilles lived and grew up in. If you find yourself up against this shield, then congratulations, you've made Achilles go all out. But then again, you've also probably already lost, because you basically gotta destroy the world. So unless you've got an anti-world noble phantasm hidden somewhere, then there's no way that you're getting out of this barrier. And it's an absolute damn shame that the person that uses this ridiculous noble phantasm is Astolfo. Achilles is the only one who's capable of using this shield for offense, but it's quite easy to use on defense. And normally, noble phantasms can only be used by the servant that possesses it. But if a noble phantasm requires little skill and power to invoke its true name, then it can be temporarily given to another willing servant. For Astolfo and Achilles though, their legends also played a role in allowing for this transaction to occur. It helped that Achilles was known for giving his powers to others, and that Astolfo was known for receiving them, since a lot of his noble phantasms were inherited. It's another one of those things where their lore ties into the role of the show. But yeah, that's how the shield was able to stop Karna's nuke. Vasavi Shakti is only an anti-army and anti-divinity noble phantasm, so it's not quite enough to defeat the Achilles Kosmos. Seriously though, the more that you read up on the red faction, the more you realize how absolutely stacked they are in comparison to the black faction. Just have one of the other servants take care of Chiron and then bam, you have an invincible demigod on your team that takes no damage. It's just so much missed potential for so many of the servants. There's a comment from yesterday's video that I really liked from Jury Doll, and he said that Achilles was so OP that the writer didn't even know what to do with him. And honestly, I think that sums up pretty well how I feel about it. Although I will give the writers credit for finding servants whose legends mesh so well with other servants' legends. That's one of the things that I love about the Fate series, the way that the real world legends mold and affect the outcomes of everything else. Anyway, other than those noble phantasms, Achilles also has battle continuation, which allows him to fight for an extended period of time after his weak point has been hit. Obviously paying homage to how he still fought off Trojan soldiers after getting his heel shot by Paris. Then he has a bravery skill which prevents mental interference attacks, probably similar to Shakespeare's. And that's pretty much Achilles. Super fast, super skilled, invincible, and if all those fail, he'll just throw a planet at your face and see how you handle that. So thanks for coming back for part 2, and don't forget to vote in the community poll to choose which servant I cover in the next episode. Also, I saw that you guys like the Piera reference. You already know that I'm a pretty big fan of the series, so I'm gonna try to get out a special video dedicated to Ruby next weekend. Hopefully you guys will tune in for that one as well. But as always, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So until next time, ciao!